Hello and welcome to the Holistically Psyched podcast. I'm your host, Mariah Choate, a nationally certified school psychologist turned stay-at-home mom who now has the freedom to share what school districts don't want you to know after spending over a decade in the field of education. My goal is to help you learn all you need to know about special education that districts often gatekeep. Each episode will dive into how commonly laws are blatantly broken and tips on leveraging special education law to support best practice for students and teachers alike. We'll also feature interviews with parents and educators who are navigating these challenges head-on, along with those who are making strides to improve this broken system. This channel is for you, parents of students with suspected or diagnosed disabilities who already have or might need individualized education plans or 504 plans. It's also for teachers, counselors, and fellow school psychologists who are feeling the strain of a system that often leaves us feeling burnt out and overwhelmed. So if you're ready to learn, advocate, and empower yourself, child, or students, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome back after a long winter break to the Holistically Psyched podcast. I'm your host, Mariah Choate, a nationally certified school psychologist turned stay-at-home mom and resource creator for families and educators navigating special education. Today, I want to tackle a question I get so often. When is it the right time to hire an advocate for your child's IEP meetings, and when might it actually not be the best idea? So first of all, I need to explain a common misconception. I myself am actually not an advocate in the traditional sense of the word. Typically, advocates are individuals well-versed in special education law, or that can even be a parent who have gone through this process themselves with their own child, who sits in on IEP meetings to ensure that students with disabilities and their families receive appropriate educational services and supports. Advocates could be lawyers, previous school psychologists, teachers, special education teachers. It really just depends. Advocates work to protect the rights of students under special education laws, such as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. Even though at the moment I am not personally sitting in on meetings and meeting one-on-one with clients to help prepare them for meetings, my resources work to do this for a much smaller cost. Specifically, my comprehensive IEP guide for parents and teachers and the behavior guide I've created have helped hundreds of parents learn how to work with the school to implement best practice strategies for their child while also having special education laws and case laws to back their reasoning. Each of these guides are actually $27 and $19, so I'll link them both below. Whereas typical advocacy work costs anywhere from $125 to $500 hourly, with some requiring retainers between $800 and $5,000. And as a side note, I'm in Southern California for reference. But please hear me when I say there's absolutely a time and a place to hire a traditional advocate. So let's get into it. Advocating for a child's learning needs is crucial, but how you advocate and when you involve others can significantly impact the team dynamic and ultimately a child's progress. Let's dive into this complex issue and explore when bringing in an advocate can be a game changer and when it actually might cause unintended tension or division. In my experience, there are situations where hiring an advocate is absolutely necessary. Let's talk about those scenarios. Number one, when the team isn't listening to your concerns. If you've tried expressing your concerns, sharing data, or even bringing in private evaluations, and the school team continually dismisses your input, sometimes even an argument every single meeting, it may be time for an advocate. Advocates can bring expertise and ensure that your voice is heard. Number two, when there's a pattern of non-compliance or legal issues. If the school consistently fails to follow through with what the IEP team agreed upon or refuses necessary evaluations, having an advocate can add accountability and help ensure that the team fulfills their legal obligations, along with the ability to document and file to the state if need be. On the flip side, there are times when hiring an advocate might actually not be the best move. So let's get into those considerations next. Number one, if the team is collaborative and responsive. So if your team is listening to your concerns, involving you in decision making, and making adjustments as needed, hiring an advocate might feel like a premature escalation. In these cases, building trust and working collaboratively is often much more effective, even if that means that you set a time frame for it. So I've worked with a parent who they've requested an FBA. The team was very vehemently saying no because they want to try their system of implementing a BIP and gathering data first. My recommendation to the parent was basically to trust the team as much as she could for a 6-week period of time to come back and then say, okay, if your data isn't really working, let's get back to the FBA because I trusted your guidance and I trusted this process and it didn't work. And the bright side of that was after just 3 weeks of the team implementing what they needed to, there was no need for an FBA because the behaviors decreased with the BIP. All right, number 2, if the relationship is new. So at the start of an IEP process, it's crucial to establish rapport with the team and, in my opinion, assume best intentions. Jumping straight to hiring an advocate could actually set a tone of mistrust before ever even giving the team a chance to work with you or your child. Number 3, when you feel overwhelmed by the process. So the IEP process is complex and full of legal jargon. If you're finding it hard to keep up with the laws, deadlines, procedural safeguards, or you might even have a disability yourself, this is when you can do the legwork to empower yourself. This is the point at which I typically work with teachers and parents to help bring clarity and resolve communication breakdowns or understanding the right questions to ask the team. Scheduling a meeting to clarify concerns, asking for detailed explanations, or requesting to revisit data can also often resolve issues without escalation. Number 4, if the advocate could unintentionally disrupt the dynamic. Some advocates, while well-intentioned, may adopt an overly angry and downright abusive approach, which can create unnecessary tension for everyone involved. While advocacy is so important, it's also essential to maintain a sense of collaboration within the IEP team. The goal is to work together for the child's benefit, not to alienate team members who genuinely want to help. Unfortunately, in my previous district, we had a lot of very, very difficult advocates to the point where we heard a name, we already knew that there was going to be literal yelling and fighting in an IEP meeting. That's just not helpful for anyone involved and really burns out teachers and staff who are hoping to do what's right and care for your child well. So before you make the decision to hire an advocate, ask yourself these key questions. Have I exhausted other communication options? Have you tried informal problem-solving meetings? Have you revisited the data or asked for additional clarifications from the team? Even in writing over email could be helpful as well. Have you done your part to educate yourself on all things special education law and processes and your or your child's right? If not, find the link to my guides below and take this route before hiring an advocate. Do I feel heard by the team? If the answer is no, the efforts to communicate have failed. This might indicate a need for an advocate. Will the decision serve my child's needs? Ultimately, the goal isn't to win a battle. It's to ensure that your child has the tools and support that they need to thrive. Ask yourself if bringing in an advocate will help accomplish that, or if it could inadvertently stall progress. Advocating for your child is a balancing act. Knowing when to bring in an advocate and when to work with the existing team dynamic is critical for fostering a productive and supportive environment. Remember, your goal is to ensure that your child gets the services and support they need to succeed, whether that's through collaboration, advocacy, or a mix of both. Thank you for joining me today on Holistically Psyched. If you found this episode helpful, share it with someone who you think might benefit from it. And as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts or experiences with hiring an advocate yourself. You can reach out to me at holistically_psyched on Instagram, and I'd be happy to DM you. Until next time, remember, advocating for your child starts with knowledge and ends with teamwork.
Thanks so much for joining me today. I would be so grateful if you could share this with anyone you can think of who works in education or happens to have a child with disabilities. If this was helpful for you, make sure to subscribe so you can hear some of the crazy and amazing stories of what is really going on behind the scenes in public education. Until next time, remember, in the famous words of Maya Angelou, each child belongs to all of us, and they bring us a tomorrow in direct relation to the responsibility we have shown to them.